What is up, YouTube? It's boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the Commander in front of us on my quest to brew the Magic world. As always, the deck list is going to be down in the description for you below, as well as I would really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, check out the links in the description, do all that YouTube stuff. I'd really appreciate it. Today, we're still rocking on through, and I believe this is our last of the two-color tribal commanders for Bloomburrow. Today we're talking about Muerra Trash Tactician, a 3-mana Gruul Raccoon Warrior 2/4. It says at the beginning of your first main phase, we're going to add a red or a green for each raccoon we control. Whenever we expend 4, so whenever we spend our 4th mana total to cast spells this turn, we're going to gain 3 life, and on 8, we exile the top 2 cards of our library until the end of our next turn. We can play those cards. So I've said it before for all the other Bloomburrow commanders, and I'm going to say it here again. I like that we're stapling payoffs onto these creatures instead of it just being raccoons.deck. And I think we get two really interesting ones here. The main one is casting things from exile. We have so many things in these 2 colors to do that, and that's where most of the deck is actually going to focus, other than raccoons themselves. We're going to care a little bit about the life gain, not too much, but there are a couple cards that we could play and take advantage of. But the main thing is getting that expend 8 every turn, exiling the top cards, playing things out of exile, getting triggers and payoffs when it happens, and pushing our game plan forward. Starting with our raccoons, there are some interesting ones in this set. We're playing Bellow from the commander deck. Our deck isn't necessarily suited to be a Bellow deck. Like, we're not playing as many enchantments and artifacts as we'd want for it to be a Bellow deck, but I think Bellow's a great body for its price, and we are playing some, so I think Bellow will see some love. Brambleguard Veteran says whenever we expend 4 raccoons we control, get +1/+1 in vigilance on a turn. It's going to matter at some point in the game. We aren't playing a ton of raccoons. We are playing some changelings and things like that, but at least it can help to some degree of the raccoons to be a threat at some point. Byway Barter says whenever we expend 4, we can pitch our hand, and if we do, draw 2 cards. Of course, this could be very helpful once we get no cards in hand, as a way to just pitch our hand and draw 2 cards, or if we have nothing left we want, pitch it and draw 2. Teapot Slinger, whenever we expend 4, 2 damage to each opponent. This at least gives something to build towards every turn. Get some of that chip damage in. Trail Tracker Scouts is where we expend 8. We can return up to 1 permanent from our graveyard to our hand. That's great, being able to get things back, and it can tap to add a mana of any color. And then Wandertail mana, Mentor over there on the right. Whenever you expend 4, you put a counter on it, it can tap for either red or green. So the raccoons really, to me, here are just utility creatures in a lot of ways. They're going to trigger off this expend and just help us get a little more value for what we're trying to do. But at the end of the day, we're here to get things from exile. And although Muerra will always hopefully get us one every turn, we want to get more and more if we can. We're playing both Atalis, because I think they both help us out a ton, letting us cast things from exile and work with all of our exile payoffs. Escape to the Wilds let us exile the top 5. We can play cards exiled this way until the end of our next turn, and we can play additional land this turn. You can get a couple cards in, get some extra lands into play if we haven't used our land drops yet, and then just have some cards in exile to play. Ignite the Future exiles the top 3 until our next turn. We could play those cards, but the cool part is if we flashed it back, we could do it without paying their mana cost. Inspired Tinkering makes us some treasures, lets us exile the top 3, and again, until the end of our next turn, we could play those cards. Light Up the Stage, exile the top 2, until the end of your next turn, you can play those, and we get it reduced if we deal damage to an opponent this turn. We have things like the new Season of Bold, which we can exile the top 2 cards of our library and play them, and then I think the ideal mode here is doing the 2-paw and the 3-paw. The 3-paw says until the end of your next turn, whenever you cast a spell, it deals 2 damage up to 1 creature. So you could start taking out creatures, right, as we're casting spells. Unstable Amulet comes in, get some energy whenever we cast a spell from anywhere other than our hand. It deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then we can pay some energy into it to get another card exiled. But this is just going to work well with all the other things we're doing. And then Sunbird's Invocation. Whenever we cast a spell from our hand, reveal the top X cards of our library where X is that spell's mana value. We can cast a spell with mana value X or lesser among them without paying its mana cost. and put the rest in the bottom. So just another way to cast something anywhere else but our hand. But how are we going to pay that off, right? I think the one that immediately came to my mind was Faldhorn from that Baldur's Gate precon. Whenever you cast a spell from exile or a land enters the battlefield from exile, make a wolf, and you can pay to pitch a card to exile the top card. I think this just makes sense to have it sitting around, getting us those wolves and having us go have a little bit of a go wide threat. Same thing with Aroxa from the Doctor Who decks. Whenever we cast a spell from anywhere other than our hand, we make a 2/2 red alien warrior creature token. And then it has battle cries. When it attacks, all of our other creatures get a little buff. Keeper of Secrets will deal damage equal to the mana value of a spell we cast from anywhere other than our hands. So that's pretty cool, dealing out some damage every time we do it. Lelia, when it attacks, exiles the top card and lets us play it that turn. And whenever one or more cards are put into exile from your library or your graveyard, we get a counter on it, so it can get pretty big. Wild Magic Sorcerer allows the first spell we cast from exile each turn to have Cascade, allowing us to get more things every time we do them. And then the big combo for this strategy is Passionate Archaeologist. As long as we have Muerra out every time we cast a spell from exile, we deal damage equal to its mana value to target opponent. So same thing, kind of like with that Keeper of Secrets. Just get one of those abilities and just start doling out some damage as we cast things from exile. As far as life gain goes, there's a lot of things we can do, but I think the two cards that came to my mind that seem really good because it happens, right, we gain that life once a turn. We have Blossoming Bogbeast. This is a way to kind of turn even all of our other things into threats. When it attacks, we gain 2 life. Then all creatures we control get trample and +X/+X until the turn where X is the amount of life we gain this turn. So with Bogbeast and Muerra out, we're going to gain 5 life, meaning +5/+5 and trample. Seems pretty darn good. And then Trudge Garden, when we gain life, we can pay 2. If we do, we make a fungus token with trample. So again, just a way to kind of take our life gain that we pretty much are probably going to hit every turn, with the threshold being 4 for the expend, and make a token from it. I've said before on the show, and I'll say it again, no deck's ever complete. This is my version 1.0 shot at it. And I think as I built the deck, I realized that there's a lot of different ways we could take this. And there were a couple cards that I loved the look of. I just couldn't find a slot for them in the deck. The first is the new Dragonhawk. I like it. When it enters or attacks, exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of creatures you control, power 4 or greater. You can play them until your next end step, and at the beginning of your end step, it deals 2 damage to each opponent for each card that's still there. Again, I like the ability, because it makes sense. Exile the cards that deal with the damage. I just am worried that we're going to end up putting too many things in exile that we can't cast. Roaming Throne makes sense because it can double up on Muerra's triggers, right, and all our other raccoons. It does carry a price tag, you know, a real life price tag. But I think it makes sense in the deck with wanting to make sure we keep the raccoons getting lots of value. We should definitely be able to double up those expend triggers, so it would make sense to me. And then Call Forth the Tempest is just a fun board wipe. 8 mana, double Cascade, and it says it deals damage equal to each creature your opponents control, equal to the total mana value of other spells you've cast this turn. So hey, you could Cascade into a couple spells, get that to 10, 12 mana, you know, depending on what you Cascade into, and just have a one-sided board wipe, but also get a couple spells out of exile. So mainly what I'm just trying to do is give you ideas of what we can take this deck and kind of morph it into. But let's get into the playtest, because I think a lot of this deck's going to come down to visually watching it happen. Keeping a 4-lander with Bramble Familiar, a Jeska's Will, and Faldhorn. So we kind of got a good exile payoff here. You know, we got a Mana Dork, that's a raccoon as well, so it's going to get us mana. We've got Jeska's Will, a way to exile some stuff. So I like it. I think we're kind of getting towards what we want to see. Fortunately, we don't have a forest for that Rootbound Crags, so I think I'll get it. Oh, we don't have it for the Garenberg either. This is kind of an odd hand, isn't it? Sorry. Turn 2, I mean, the Bramble Familiar would be the best, but the problem is I don't think I have another land that comes in untapped. So I think we were just going to have to let it be what it is this turn, unfortunately. I probably should have paid more attention to which lands were in our hand, but that's okay. Turn 3, we'll get this tapped to get in that Bramble Familiar. So it can tap for a green, or 1 in a tap it to discard a card and bring it back to our hand. That way we can do that big 7-mana adventure if we want to. Turn 4, this should be the turn here we can get Muerra down. Again, just those tap lands made it kind of odd, but I think once we get in the rhythm here, we should have a pretty good shot at it. So here we are, turn 5, 5 mana, 4 mana here, 1 mana from the Bramble, and then Muerra lets us add a red or a green for each raccoon, which is 2. So we have 7 mana total. I think I want to get Faldhorn down, right? That makes a ton of sense. Make sure it gets down and it starts working. And then I think we might as well Kadama's Reach and just make sure we get some more lands in. That's going to trigger our gain 3 life because of the because of that trigger. We'll put the mountain in tapped and we'll bring this to our hand, and then we can actually play that forest. So we didn't play a land this turn. So that was 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we would have just the green mana left, but that's okay. We had a great turn where we set up, got some things down, and we can work our way towards, I guess we would have 2 mana, so we can play that Glade Walker, and we'll put a counter on Muerra. But at any rate, we're working our way towards good value here. Turn 6, we can play that Skarg, and we're up to 7, 8, and then we're going to get Muerra's trigger, adding 3 mana. We'll just add triple red, so that way we have lots of it for these spells. And this is where we have to decide, you know, what do we want to do this turn. Season the Bold might make sense to exile some cards and get some Faldhorn triggers, right? You know, Jessica's Will might make sense to add some extra red and get some cards off the top and maybe try to take a big turn here. Let's go for the Season of Bold. We use 3 of the stuff from the raccoons. We'll use 1 and 1, so we've got 6 mana left to Season the Bold. And I'm going to do 2 and 3. So I'm going to exile the top 2 until end of our next turn. We can play them, and then whenever we cast a spell, it deals 2 damage each up to, to 1 creature. So, like I said, we have 6 mana left. We have enough to do the Gathering, but I don't really love the Gathering just quite yet. We have Command Tower, so we can play that next turn. We could always put the Delayed Best Fireball on Foretell. My only issue with the Gathering is if I do this, I mean, I could put all of these and put a +1/+1 counter on and give them Vigilance and Trample. I guess if my opponent had a lot of artifacts, we could pick the 2 mode here. So let's say we do play the Season of Gathering. We're going to get a 2/2 Wolf because of Faldhorn. This is now going to be us expending 8, so we're going to exile the top 2, and we can play them until end of our next turn, right? And we gain the 3 life. But let's say we do the number 2, we pick artifacts since we don't have any, nuke everybody's artifacts, and we'll just put counters on, I guess, these 3. And we can, take an attack, right, since they have Vigilance and Trample, and we'll push towards the next turn here. So we want to try to play these, right? So I'll play the Command Tower from exile. That's going to make me another wolf. We have 3 raccoons, so we'll add triple red, use 2 of our lands for this gratuitous violence from exile, right? Getting another wolf. This says whenever a creature we control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage. And I think that land's just going to end up going away. That is up to 4, so we're going to gain 3 life, right? Not up to the exile yet. So we had 3, let's say 4, 5, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana left. I like the Asceticism just to help protect our board a little bit, so we'll put that down. That's going to get us to 8, which is going to exile the top 2. And I think we should have enough to play this Mentor, getting us a wolf, and setting us up for next turn. We have that Keeper Secrets, which we definitely want to get in. That's going to give everything hexproof, and then we can start dealing some damage, so just take another attack in here. Turn 8, no land from exile, so we'll just get the Path of Ancestry in. And I'm kind of thinking this might be the turn we Jessica's Will, since we have some good mana here. We're adding 4 mana this turn with our raccoons, so we'll just use 3 of it for the Jessica's Will. Let's say on turn 8, somebody has 7 cards in their hands. We're getting 7 red mana, and then I want to go ahead and exile the top 3 since we control our commander. So 7 red mana, we've got 1 red left from the raccoons, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana, so we're at 17 mana, I think, from my count. Use 6 of it for the Keeper, Wolf, and now we are at Muerra's. Expend 8. The Mentor will get a counter on it for its ability. We get a Realm Walker, and a Shelter Thicket. We've already played our land for turn, so nothing we can do there. We'll bring the Mimic in. 2 damage to somebody with a Keeper Secrets, another Wolf. We'll bring the Garruk's Uprising in, draw a card, another Wolf from Faldhorn, and 3 more damage from somebody. From that way, we'll bring the Realm Walker in, another Wolf, 3 damage in. We can look at the top card, play creatures off the top, only of the chosen type, but we do see a Tali on top, so we know that's coming. So that comes in with a counter because of Metallic Mimic. We're going to call Raccoons. And then I'll pitch the Mosswort Bridge to exile the Atali. Play the Atali, draw a card off of Garruk's Uprising, get another Wolf, deal 6 to somebody. It comes in, and I think we're at a spot here where we're kind of hitting most of our value. I think we'll go to the next playtest. We got a bunch of wolves, and I mean next turn we just untap and continue the value. It's kind of odd, right? Because we don't really know what our opponents would do to try to deal with us or to deal with removal. But I think what we're just trying to do is see what we do inhibited. Here we're keeping a 3-lander with an Inspired Tinkering, Junkblade Bruiser, which just gets bigger when we expend 4. Roughshot Duo, which gives a creature we control +1/+1 and trample till the turn when we expend 4 Heroic Intervention. We drew Lelia, which is a cool start, right? Another creature that could start exiling things for us. Turn 2, don't really have anything good I want to do, so we'll just pass it on for now. Turn 3, with Rockfall in, I think we just get Muerra started, and we could do Lelia here, but I kind of like the idea of just getting this started, because now in turn 4, we'll just add a green. We're at 5 mana. We could Lelia. We could Bruiser, which would just get us up to that 3 life. But would get us an extra mana next turn. We could Roughshot Duo, which would... I'm just trying to think of how I can use my mana efficiently. Maybe Roughshot so we can leave 2 up for the Heroic, I guess, just in case. And then I think we'll just move on to the next turn here. Turn 5, no land drop, but we do get 2 mana now. We'll call it red. And I think this is a turn where we Jeska's Will. I'm sure somebody will have 7 at this point, so we'll just net 7 red mana. So we're already at 3 for the Jeska's Will. And I've got 3 mana left, so we're at 10 mana. I kind of like the idea of Lelia, which would get me the 3 life, and then Junkblade, which would get me the expend 8. So we're going to exile the top 2. Can play them to the end of the next turn. Lelia will say, whenever one or more cards are put to exile from your graveyard or library, put a counter on it, so it's going to get a counter. I don't know that I want to attack with Lelia this turn, because I have to play it this turn, and I have no mana left. But that's okay, we're setting up the board. We have 3 Raccoons here for turn 6. So we're adding 3 mana. I guess we'll pick 3 red, and now the cool part is we can play this Delayed Blast Fireball and get its big effect from it. Hugs is interesting. We can exile the top X cards into the end of your next turn. We can play those cards, so that's kind of another way to get some cards into exile. But first we'll pay 3 of that for Araxa, Empress of Mars. That is our expend 4, so we're going to gain 3 life. We'll say Rajat gives him Muerra trample, and then this gets +2/+1, so it turns into a 6/6 until end of turn. And then we'll play the Delayed Blast Fireball, dealing 5 to each opponent and each creature they control, potentially being a little one-sided board wipe here. That gets us to expend 8 again, exiling 2 more cards, another counter on Lelia. That was 4/3, so I believe that's all the mana we had that turn at our disposal, which is A-okay. Araxa makes us a 2/2 alien warrior when we play that Delayed Blast Fireball. Take an attack here with the Muerra and the Junkblade that were buffed up that turn, and we'll move to the next one. Here we have both Arcane Signet and Garruk's Uprising, which are both cards I'd really like, because just for playing them, I'm going to end up getting a couple alien warriors. So we have 1, 2, 3 Raccoons. We'll add 3 green, and I'm going to play that Garruk's Uprising. I get to draw since the Junkblade is power 4 or greater. I'm going to make another alien warrior. think what? If I do the Arcane Signet, I only have 3 mana to my name. I guess I could keep up something like Heroic Interventions. Let's do that. Exile. I'm at 5, so we're only getting up to the gain 3 life. But here, give Muerra Trample again. This gets buffed up again. Now we've got some options to attack here with Battlecry. Take a big attack this turn, leave up the Heroic in the Chaos Warp just in case we need to do for some removal. And then we'll go here on turn 8. We didn't get to the expend last turn, which is A-okay. We've got 1, 2, still 3 Raccoons, so just 3 mana. But we've got 7, 8 total. We could Hugs for 4, try to hit a couple lands. And we could still play them up to next turn. We could try to focus on getting creatures. I guess, what's the difference? This would get us 5, this would get us 4. But this lets us play, I guess they each let us play, but Hugs would let us play 2 lands every turn. So if I go into Hugs for 4, that is the full 8 mana. So I'll gain 3 life, exile 2. Hugs is going to come in and exile 4. We get to play 2 lands this turn. And then Lelia is going to get 1 counter for Muerra's trigger and then 1 counter for Hugs' trigger. We'll get in that Temple, scry 1. Domri, I guess would be okay, but we probably don't need it at this point. And then we'll get in the Game Trail. Hugs would draw us a card because of Garrick's Uprising. And we've got some great stuff to play next turn. I mean, something like Unnatural Growth is probably just going to be a big way to end the game. So I think we would just pitch for something like Tinkering. And here in turn 9, my goal would be to play our lands from exile and then try to get, a natural growth down and just take a big attack. But let me know, what do you think of Muerra? The deck's interesting. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but I think the deck's interesting. I think it has some legs there. It's just going to be about maintaining this play from exile and finding all your pieces and getting them going. But let me know what you think of Muerra down in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys next.